Hi, Soundies. Welcome to our Sound for Video session. It's great to have you all here. Today's the 27th of April, 2025. Let's go to our agenda and see what we've got going here. All right. Today we're talking about the ZOOM H5studio. This is our first impressions. We literally just took it out of the box yesterday, put some batteries in, put a micro SD card in, formatted the card, took a photo, and here we are. That's all. So this is a little bit more exploratory, workshop-y. If you're expecting a full in-depth review after weeks of experience with it, that's coming later. But that's what we're going to do today, is just sort of a workshop and explore. First, a couple notes. Later today, 30 minutes after our live stream ends, Matt Ruff has a live stream that will be going live. I'll be joining, and if we can cut to the Mac here really quick, you can find him over on YouTube at The Senior Tech, right here. All right, so that'll be 30 minutes after our live stream ends here. So that would be 1:30 U.S. Mountain Time, 2:30 Central Time. Okay, cool. We also have something that was submitted by a member of the community here. And this is just a little light something. Recently at the National Association of Broadcasters Convention, a sound system company asked for my opinion of their new microphone, amplifier, and speakers. I gave them some feedback. Ha 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 ha. Thank you, Martin, for sharing a little lightheartedness with us. Appreciate it very much. And let's go back to our agenda with that. Right, ZOOM H5studio, audio recorder, first impressions and demo. So just to give you context here, this is on loan from B&H. I did not buy this with my own money. I am not going to keep it when I'm done. It goes back to B&H as soon as I'm done. I get to keep it for about a month. And we're just exploring it. It's one that I've had a lot of questions about. Got to see it for the first time over at NAB a couple weeks ago. And that's what we're going to focus on today. So with that, let's go over to the Mac and just, first of all, look at what ZOOM says about this whole thing. So ZOOM has been making the handy recorders since, I think it was around 2005 when they launched their H4. Originally, somewhere around there. I got, for some consulting work I was doing at the time, the company bought an H4 and I got to use it. That was the original H4, not the H4n. And then ZOOM it was a hit in the market. Tons of people bought them. Really useful. Mostly it was initially musicians, and then podcasters bought them because they were just very convenient handheld recorders. And they've been iterating ever since. So we've had a ton of them since then. And in fact, if we go to the overhead camera, we'll come back to the Mac in just a minute here. So overhead camera, here is the H5studio. Going back just a few months, here's the H4 Essential, which was a revision of the H4n and the H4n Pro, which was a revision of the H4. Here is the H8 that came out, I believe, in 2020 or 2021. Just so, also this for size comparison, just so you can see how the H5studio stacks up in terms of size. It's substantially larger than the H4n or the H4 Essential, especially with these larger condenser microphones on there. It is a capsule system, so you can interchange the capsules, and they've made some new Revision 3 capsules, so you can pop that right off. It's using a proprietary, I believe, a digital interface. So I believe the converters for the microphones are inside the module itself, and it's just sending digital audio to here, is my guess, based on what they've said in some of their marketing material. But it just snaps right back on like that. So that's kind of the history of the Handy series. That's just some of the Handy series. There's the H2, which is sort of a spatial recording in its various revisions. There's the H1, the H1 XLR, the H6 with its interchangeable modules. There was a previous version of the H5, which is why I think some people are pretty excited, because the H5 the original H5 had slightly better preamplifiers than the H4n in terms of noise performance, and I think dynamic range. And people really like the form factor. Some people really like the form factor, so I think some people are pretty excited about this new revision here. And the H5 had the interchangeable capsules as well. This retains that feature. Okay, let's go back over to the Mac and just cover kind of where this fits in the market and what they were aiming for when they created this product. So first of all, it runs $349, $350, and the kind of marketing tagline is studio quality sound anywhere you go. So a few kind of headline features here. They're talking about the H5 Studio is for seamless professional production. You can get flawless audio with stunningly clear microphones, studio-grade preamps, and 32-bit float recording. And they jump into a little bit more detail there. You can watch a little video here with people. I have not watched the video yet, so I'm not sure what they're doing, but there is one of the things that they're touting about the new microphones that come with the H5 Studio is, first of all, they're the largest mics on any handheld recorder, or handy recorder as they call them. But it also, they're saying that it has the widest dynamic range. So here, for example, the XY microphones built into the original H5 had a dynamic range of 65 dB. Whereas with the H5 Studio, they're measuring it at 123 dB. They're comparing that to, quote, high-end studio mic. I don't know what in the world that's referring to. It'd be really cool if they could be a little bit more specific about that, but I understand it's marketing material, so they don't necessarily want to call out a specific competitor. The H6 Essential, which is, again, a new recorder as of last year, I think was it 2024, early 2024, I think. They're claiming that their H6 Essential built-in XY microphones have a dynamic range of 115 dB. So a lot of times to achieve this wider dynamic range, they have to have a microphone capsule design that is able to capture higher sound pressure levels, but also retain really good self-noise performance. So that's how you get your those are kind of the two ends of the spectrum when you're talking about microphone design there. They use, on the H5 here, they use the ZOOM F-series preamps. So this is the preamps that have the equivalent input noise spec of minus 127 dBu A-weighted. And they also have dual analog to digital converters. So they record to 32-bit float. So those are kind of some of the big features. You do have the ability to drop back into 24-bit or 16-bit if you wanted to. And the knobs here are actually gain knobs, so you can manage those. 6-track recorder, up to 192 kilohertz sample rates. This is interesting. So they're touting that they're doing some RF shielding in the body design. That's good. So they're saying that should keep any interference from smartphones and Wi-Fi routers out of your recordings. Cool. Good to hear. It's really nice to see them advancing these. Advanced limiters, so they're using, I would assume, the same look-ahead digital limiters that they put into their ZOOM F-series recorder. So if you are in 24-bit or 16-bit mode and you want to use limiters, essentially what it does is it delays the audio by like 3 or 4 milliseconds, somewhere in there. And so it's able to, quote, look ahead. And so as if the audio comes in hot, essentially what it does is you set your gain trim. Behind the scenes, it's saying, yeah, I hear what you're saying, but we're going to actually set it 10 dB lower than that. And so as long as the audio is coming in, and if they'll boost each sample so it's 10 dB hotter, higher amplitude, as long as it doesn't hit up against 0 dB. And if it does, then that's when the, quote, limiter is engaged. So it's kind of an interesting design. Zoom tends to attack these types of problems with digital processing as opposed to analog processing, whereas sound devices, they'll typically use in their higher end, actually in all of their recorders, they'll use an analog limiter instead. So just a different approach there. You've got inputs and outputs. We'll cover all of those. You've got the next generation capsule system. So it looks like it's a 3.0 capsule system. So that does not, I would assume, in fact, if we go to the overhead camera, I can show you here. I assume that the H8 here is using the Series 2 capsules. So the way that works is I push in the 2 buttons and the interface looks like that. That's different than on the H5 Studio, which actually has this locking track system, and the contact points are integrated at 90 degrees from the previous system. So I don't know if this is Series 1 or Series 2. I'm not sure, but anyway. So new capsule system. What is offered in terms of capsules? Let's take a quick look at that. This was interesting. If I view these, there's a mid-side stereo shotgun mic. That's cool. Interesting. There's, of course, an add-on XLR, so you get 2 more XLR inputs. These do, by the way, provide phantom power, which is a step forward. Some of the previous generation XLR add-ons did not provide phantom power, so you could not use condenser microphones. And, ooh, interesting. This looks like a wireless receiver. You've got transmitter 1 and transmitter 2, as well as some AI noise reduction in there, but there's no text. I don't know why. Maybe that's my browser. Yeah. And then, of course, these are the microphones that come with it, the H5studio large 19.4 millimeter microphones. Okay, so let's hop out of here. The wireless system is coming late 2025, so it looks like very much like a Rode Wireless Go or all of the knockoffs of that. So you put the receiver module into there, and then you've got these 2 microphones you can clip onto people. Interesting. Sound pressure levels up to 130 dB. Cool. The meters, I definitely had some feedback on the way they were starting to show these kind of unmarked waveform displays as you're recording on the ZOOM F3, for example. You've got that. Here they decided to go with both. So you've got a waveform, plus you've got more traditional linear meters, which I appreciate. There's a headphone out with a 20 milliwatt headphone amp. For reference, Sound Device's 3.5 millimeter TRS stereo unbalanced headphone out is a 300 milliwatt output. So what that means in practical terms is you're probably going to want to use low impedance headphones or earbuds with this recorder. If you're going to pull out your audiophile headphones, you may not be able to push enough power into them to get the sound that you need, the volumes that you need to monitor those. You can also line out to direct to camera, and there is an onboard speaker. One of the most fantastic features, I think, for those with vision impairments of any sort, is that the new series of H4 or the ZOOM H Essential series and the H5studio have an accessibility feature where there's basically voiceover as you navigate through the menus. So for those with vision impairments of any sort, you can actually get that audio feedback and know exactly where you are and navigate the product itself, or the menus themselves, and all of the controls. Obviously also acts as a USB audio interface, USB-C port on the side, and it does stream. You can go to a Mac, Windows, iOS, and Android supporting 32-bit float streams, so that's cool. And it can also do 16 or 24-bit recording. So you can stream live and simultaneously record a backup to micro SD. There is also this, there's a timecode adapter. So this is very similar to the F3 and the F6, and it looks like it's integrated with the Atomos UltraSync Blue. I wish these could integrate with more standard cameras, but you have to use the Atomos system. There is a control and sync app, and you have to use a BTA1 or this TCA1. So again, it's a module you have to stick in the side here to be able to do that, to control via the app. But it looks like you can control multiple of them at the same time, which is interesting. So if you have maybe a 4-person podcast and you didn't want to go with the ZOOM H8 or one of the other recorders, you could do that. Let's see here. Features, most of those are pretty standard. Powers with 4 AA batteries, has the accessibility feature. You can buy a separate accessory pack that has a hair wind shield that you can use over the built-in microphones. And that's it. That's the main thing. So let's go to the overhead camera. Let's look at our copy here, and let's get into the nitty-gritty here. So physically, the case is plastic, although I will say it feels substantially. The H4 Essential, to me, being very frank, feels very cheap. This plastic feels very cheap. The H5 plastic feels much higher grade and much more solid. Doesn't seem to flex nearly as much, I don't think. It also has sort of a more rounded design, which is nice. I showed you the big studio microphones that come with it. They are They do have a little bit of shock mounting, so we'll test that a little bit. There's sort of a rubberized material inside of an outer ring here, although I think this is all plastic here too. The microphone barrels here are metal, feels like, but this is all plastic down here. And then we have sort of the cable has the kind of that cloth covering on it. Here's your 3.5 millimeter input, which is actually on the microphone capsule. So if you take this off and you're using one of the other modules, you lose that unless that other module also has it. And I don't know which of them have that and don't. It also includes some feet here for when you set it down on a table. And the feet that are actually integrated with the microphone module here provide a little bit more clearance so that the microphone doesn't touch the table or surface that you place it on. And of course it has these other rubber feet here as well. Those feel pretty nice and solid. 1/4-20 threads on the back so you can mount it or on a tripod or some other sort of device. And as I mentioned before, 4 AA batteries is what power it. You can, in the menus, switch between the different chemistries of batteries so that the meter will be accurate to that battery's. Each battery chemistry reacts a little bit differently. In other words, it behaves differently when it gets close to being spent. You can choose what type of batteries you're using. Here's a sense for the boot up time. A lot of people ask questions about that. So we're using we've got a micro SD card in here. It's not the fastest one in the world. And of course I cut my fingernails, so I can't get it open. This is sort of a rubber cover here. We may need to resort to a tool. So gently. It's secure, I can say that with confidence. You'll have to trust me, I guess. That's potentially a problem. It's potentially a really good thing, but it's also potentially a little bit of a problem. There we go. Oh, this is not the SD card. This is the slot for the wireless modules that you can add. My mistake. Micro SD's down here. And that is just a door, plastic door that kind of swings open like that. And we can pop out our micro SD card. This is a 32 gigabyte SanDisk Ultra. Again, not one of the fastest, most recent cards. I've had this one for quite some time. And it looks like, does it flip in upside down? No. Okay, there we go. So we pop that back in. It's reading, and it says we're good. Okay, good. All right, you'll notice here, right now we have the 2 built-in microphones activated. See some levels there, and these are both turned off. You can also activate the XLR inputs by the press of a button, and the XLR inputs, of course, are down here on the bottom. Locking, so they're combo jacks, XLR and 1/4 inch TRS. All good there. I wonder if you can switch to line level. We will see when we get into the menus a little bit. Over here on the left-hand side, we have our line output. That's how you feed audio to the camera, if you're going to do that. Headphone jack, headphone volume, and we have the power switch with a lock. You can put it in hold mode so you can't. Let's see what that prevents. Yeah, I can't pretty much do anything when it's in hold mode. Cannot. So here's a button right here to switch between 32-bit float and 16 or 24-bit fixed. And I think the only thing that is oh no, looks like, can I adjust my gain? Wow, interesting. It says held. So you can't even adjust your gain while that's on hold. Interesting. Okay. All right. Well, learn some things there. This side, let's just finish everything else on this side. So we have micro SD here, USB-C port there, wireless module door right there. And then we have a roller and a button. So on the original H4 and the H4n, you had a menu button, but then you had a single roller that was also something you could press. So to select something in the menu, you would roll to it and then press in on the roller. They've changed that pattern here. So now to activate the menu, you just start moving the roller, and you can see it there at the top of the screen. And then to select something, instead of pressing in on the roller, you press in on the enter button instead. Let's go to something that can show us a menu. There we go. So that'll take you into the menus. Slightly different pattern. That may be confusing for some that are used to the older ones, but it works fine. Of course, we have our transport controls down here. Record, it's one button to start recording. Sometimes kind of the traditional recorders would do something a little different where you would press once to arm and then a second time to record. This one just is one time to record and then press the stop button to stop the recording. Other transport, we have the fast back, fast forward, play, pause, and stop. And then again, as I mentioned before, to activate one of the other inputs, we just press a button there and that records them as well. Right now, you'll notice here on, I have the built-in mics activated, and you'll notice here that as I adjust this, it's adjusting both microphones in tandem. So this one here is disabled because of the way it's configured right now. I think you can change it so that you can operate those independent of each other. So that would be in the menu. All right, let's pause. And we're going to jump into the menus in just a moment. Let's go back to the main camera here, see what questions or thoughts people have out in the chat so far. Put my tools back. Eric says, I remember seeing so many thumbnails of the H8 all over YouTube when it came out. Everyone was demoing it. The H8, yeah, that was pretty popular. A lot of, I mean, it was a magnet for conversation. Some people thought we're making fun of the way that it looks, and they oriented it this way so that they could fit 3 XLR inputs on each side. So it has a total of 6 XLR inputs plus the 2 stereo mics. There's one thing I forgot. I'll come back. Actually, let's go to the overhead before I forget. Let me just show you one other thing here that's important. These do not, on the previous versions, for example, the H4n, you could adjust the microphone stereo angle. So it could go 120 degrees for a wider stereo imaging, or was that narrower? And then 90 degrees. Yeah, 120 if you wanted a more extreme stereo image. The H5studio's built-in microphones do not do that. They are fixed at 90 degrees, just FYI. Okay, back to the chat. Little nuance differences between all of them, of course. Mr. Hammett, say, what would you say now to someone new? I'm not sure what you mean. Like which recorder to go with?
No.
Oh.
Welcome.
Oh, welcome, Mr. Hammett. It's good to have you here. I hope you're doing well. Soundy? I'm curious of the self noise. I remember one Curtis did, minus 53 dB was pretty poor. Yeah, that's not a very, I have to confess something here. And I'm trying to emphasize this more and more. Those practical noise floor tests that I do, I need to be clear that those are not a scientific reproducible test necessarily. In other words, you couldn't necessarily do the same thing. You'd have to be in the same room that I'm in. And they're also not A-weighted. So we're not applying an A-weighting curve, which accounts for human hearing. So those are it's just an example of one practical, one real world example of what I was able to achieve with that recorder. So that caveat I'll throw out there first. But yeah, we'll definitely do that. And I don't know that we're going to do that here today. And the reason why I wouldn't do that here today is when I do the live stream, there's a lot of stuff packed into this room, gear with fans. So on and so forth. So I wouldn't want to do that here. I would normally want to do that out in my other space there where I can control the noise a little bit better. But yes, we will definitely come back to that in the full review. And it should be a much better performance because of the preamplifiers here. New adapter coming soon. Time code, says Andre. Yes, that will be interesting. Again, I think it's tied in with specifically with the Atomos time code systems. So it's not universally compatible, but if you do use the Atomos system, that can work with that. Especially if you're using one of their Atomos recorders and you have the Atomx timecode module, wireless timecode module. Paul, what I am interested in is self noise and sound quality of the built-in XY mic compared to Tascam Portacapture X8, and XLR self noise compared to F3 and Tascam FR AV2. Great, I'll take a note of that, and we will compare them as best we can. We won't be doing that today just because of the space that I'm in. Thomas asks, question, in the old H5, you can pause recording, then press play, and the time picked up where you left off. How does the H5studio save the time when it also has time code and the clock needs to keep going? I don't know. Let's take a look, and first, let's go to the overhead camera here and just make sure that we can pause a recording. So I have a recording going. And it looks like when I press the button, it looks like it's paused. And then I press it again, and it left a mark. Yeah, I don't know how that would work with timecode. And that's not something you would typically want to do with timecode, is pause a recording. Unless all of your cameras and all of your audio were 100% synced, and that would require probably word clock instead of timecode. So I don't think, Thomas, that, trying to imagine the workflow, but I think the trick is that the way timecode works, SMPTE timecode works, is it timestamps any individual media file. So for example, if we press record on your camera, it stamps timecode. Likewise on your audio recorders, when you press record, it stamps the current time of the start according to the timecode clock in that audio file. As far as I'm aware, it doesn't have the ability to stamp that multiple times per the SMPTE spec. So it's probably just recording the initial audio file start, and instead it looks like it's definitely adding a metadata mark of some sort, which is not a SMPTE thing, into the file. You just have to, your post-production software will just have to accommodate for that. But I don't know, I guess probably what you're asking is, does it leave a space in the file for when we were paused? We can check that, I don't know. Mark says, and I'll stop the recording there, and we can actually take a look at that. Does the recorder have features such as a limiter, compressor, any noise reduction like the sound device's noise assist? It does have a digital limiter. We talked about that for just a second there. Zoom calls them their look-ahead limiters. So it does have those, but if we go to the overhead camera, let's take a quick look through the menus here. I don't think it has a compressor or EQ or anything like that, but let's go through and look at our options here. So we have our file list, we have our input settings, we have our output settings, we have our record settings, display settings, SD card, USB, and system. So let's look under record first of all. And under record, well, that's weird. Oh, here we go. Okay, sample rate, mix file, pre-record, record start, metadata. That's everything in the record menu, so not there. Let's go to the system menu. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything there. And then let's go to the inputs menu. We have a low cut. So for each input for the mics, I can choose a low cut, an advanced limiter, mono mix. I can turn on plug-in power for the 3.5 millimeter input. I can link the left and right gain knobs. So that was one thing we were wondering before. You can unlink them if you choose to do that. If I come back out, 48 volts, we can switch it between mic and line. Thank you very much, Zoom. So on some of the earlier generation Zoom recorders, the inputs, the combo inputs, if you inserted an XLR cable, it switched the device to microphone mode. If you inserted a 1/4 inch TRS cable, it switched that input to a line level signal. and there was no menu setting to change that. Here, you can actually change it. Doesn't matter what kind of cable you plug in, whether either one of those balanced types of cables, XLR or balanced TRS, you can switch it between mic and line. Thank you, Zoom. Yeah, same thing here. So to answer your question, Mark, we can go back to the chat here. No, it does not have a compressor. It does have a limiter, but you can turn that limiter on and off per input. Power consumption. The H4 grinds through batteries. Physique Drummond, that's an interesting perspective because Zoom handy recorders are some of the most power efficient battery powered recorders I've used. If you want to hear about one that chews through batteries, try putting alkaline batteries in a Sound Devices mix pre and you'll get 20 minutes maybe of power time. The Zoom H4 in particular did pretty well, but of course we'll have to test that. So I put in fresh nickel metal hydride rechargeables yesterday, and if we switch to the overhead here, now I've had it on for probably a total of about, I would say, an hour so far, and it looks like we're down to 2 out of 3 bars, to give you a sense. So I'm going to guess we're going to get, of course it depends on whether you're feeding phantom power to each of the inputs or plug-in power to the 3.5 millimeter input, but it also has a much bigger, nicer color display. So I'm going to guess that it's less power efficient than something like the older generation monochrome screened recorders like the Zoom H4n. Mr. Hammett, money aside, as the pre's are the same or similar for someone that doesn't have a recorder yet, could the H5 do, or is there still an advantage to the F series? The F series are, so here's my perspective. Other people may have other thoughts on this as well, but the F series was originally designed for field recording for video production. That's what it was made for. The Handy series was made as more of a device, like a kind of a jack of all trades type of device, like a multi-tool type of thing. And it originally got quite popular, again, amongst podcasters, and some musicians were using the original Handy recorders. So it depends on what you're doing, but yeah, I think it could do fine if you just need 2 inputs or maybe 4 inputs if you're going to buy that module that allows you to add additional external inputs, or you want built-in microphones. That's a big thing for a lot of people that are out recording, ambiances in nature or anywhere else. Sometimes having those built-in microphones is an advantage. So it just depends on what you're trying to do. If you're doing video and film production, I clearly prefer the Zoom F series. Okay. Andrew says new adapter will be universal. I'm not sure the context of that.
That was the previous comment that they made.
Okay, cool.
This thing.
Oh, the time code module. Okay, cool. Got it. Will be universal. In other words, it should have a 3.5, some sort of port for doing wired jams between different devices, it sounds like, if I'm understanding correctly. That'd be cool.
I don't know if this is an answer.
I was wondering about word clock. Yeah, no word clock facilities built in to the Zoom series. In any of, do the H series, wait, the F series? Sorry for the mic bump there. This is the Zoom F8N Pro. We have BNC connectors for, I know it's time code input and output, but I don't think it's word clock enabled. So no, I don't even think the Zoom F series are word clock capable, for your question, Vincent. Okay. That's all? Okay, let's make a test recording, take a look at it. So, get ready for some stereophonic effects. By the way, I don't know if you can hear that. It rattles around just a touch. I don't know if I don't have it. Rattles it just a touch. that could be one of the things that I'm curious about is this new shock mounting and how well it does at isolating the handling noise of the device itself. So let's just do a quick recording on that. So I'm recording with the built-in microphones, and I'm going to bring them up here. So I should be in one channel, and now I'm switching over to the other channel. You can't really see this. Let me just do this. Switching over to the other channel. I'm going to hold it very firmly. You can see a little bit of a white knuckle experience, but I don't want to. I just want to see how much isolation it does with just kind of general smooth movement like that. So we'll stop the recording there. Incidentally, you can press stop or the record button to stop, so that's cool. Now we'll get a USB cable here. Again, USB-C. And as soon as I plug that in, it goes to USB-C power. It's interesting that the power indicator, it was a battery status, and now it just disappears when you're powered, presumably when you're powered via USB. So we'll pop into our menu, go over to USB. We'll do file transfer via USB. Okay. So we're connected to our computer. Then we'll come into our, give me just a second to pull that file in. Okay, let's go to the Mac here. Let's go to this most recent recording. We'll pop that into Isotope RX. Oh my goodness. That is an interesting waveform. I'm going to tell you what, for the benefit of everyone's ears, I'm going to gain down just a little bit to start. We can always move it back up. All right, so this is a 32-bit float recording. Let's just listen to it first and see what we've got. On that, so I'm recording with the built-in microphones, and I'm going to bring them up here. So I should be in one channel, and now I'm switching over to the other channel. You can't really see this. Let me just do this. Switching over to the other channel. I'm going to hold it very firmly. You can see a little bit of a white knuckle experience, but okay, let's boost those levels a little bit. Okay, and listen to that again. On that, so I'm recording with the built-in microphones, and I'm going to bring them up here. So I should be in one channel, and now I'm switching over to the other channel. You can't really see this. Let me just do this. Switching over to the other channel. I'm going to hold it very firmly. You can see a little bit of a white knuckle experience, but I don't want to. I just want to see how much isolation it does with just kind of general smooth movement like that. So, okay, so a couple things stand out to me. All good there. The amount of energy, let's go back to the Mac here. There's amount of energy down here in the bass frequencies is through the roof. So I think the short version there is definitely want to use a low pass or a high cut. So we're going to go ahead and come into our EQ here, and I'll roll off 70 hertz minus 24 dB per octave and just clean some of that up. We'll run it a couple times. You'll see the waveform will look very different now as a result of doing that. So there's just a lot going on down there. So if we come back over to, well, no, we'll stay here for now. So yeah, just a lot of bass getting built up there. Again, if you add if you added an A weighting curve or you add a high pass filter like we just did, that's going to clean all that up very quickly. And then what we can do here is we can probably make that a little bit easier to hear now. So if I play it back now, on that, so I'm recording with the built-in microphones, and I'm going to bring them up here. So I should be in one channel, and now I'm switching over to the other channel. You can't really see this. Let me just do this. Switching over to the other channel. I'm going to hold it very firmly. You can see a little bit of a white knuckle experience, but I don't want to. I just want to see how much isolation it does with just kind of general smooth movement like that. So we'll stop the recording there. Okay. So I'm hearing plenty of handling noise even after applying a high pass filter. Pretty extreme. Pretty extreme. We went to a 70 hertz, 24 dB per octave applied twice. So essentially two of them. And I'm still hearing quite a bit of handling noise. So that's probably, I mean, it's probably not as extreme as some of the other ones. I remember using the H4n Pro, I think it was called. Yeah, it was the H4n Pro, and I just remember being very frustrated because it felt like there was so much handling noise with those. So it's almost like to capture the sound, you need to mount it on something. Actually, hand holding it was was a little tricky. Maybe you could wear a glove, and maybe that would help. I don't know, but it was. We're still getting some noise. I will say this: those microphones sound pretty good to me. Overall, I'm pretty impressed there with the sound of the microphones. So let's pause there again. Let's go back to the chat and see what kind of things people are wondering. And while we're doing that, I'm going to go ahead and close that recording. And I'm going to queue up the other one where we paused the recording. Let's just see what that one looks like here, what it does to it. Okay, is there anything in the chat there? No? Okay, we'll go back to the Mac here. Let's just play this back. Maybe boost the level some. Let's play this back and see what we got here. Let's take a look at first. Let's go to the overhead camera here and just make sure that we can pause a recording. So I have a recording going, and then I press it again, and it left a mark. Yeah, I don't know how that would work with time coding. That's not something you would typically want. Okay, so it leaves a mark. It didn't act, in that case, it didn't actually pause the recording. It doesn't look like it just left a mark. As far, oh, maybe it was a cut there. Maybe it was paused. Let's play that again. Recording going, and then I press it again, and it left a. Okay, it did pause. Yeah, so it paused. So to answer your question, I think it's just going to leave you with the initial timestamp. It's not going to put another timecode timestamp. Just to kind of clear that up. I think it was Thomas that asked that question. All right, let's go back to the main camera and let's look at the questions or comments. The question is, would H4 Essential H5 or Tascam Portacapture X8 do any better? Not in my experience, no. In fact, the microphones on all of those others didn't sound as good as the H5studio to me. So if I were going to choose, if I could only have the information I have as of this very moment in time and the experience that I've had with all of them and up to this period of time, I would definitely choose the H5studio over all of those others. If the built-in mics are the biggest consideration for me. Eric says maybe a microphone recorder selfie stick or monopod is in order. Yeah, maybe something that can help kind of just isolate some of that handling noise. Mark, the mics sounded pretty nice. It sounded like you had turned it off axis while adjusting. I did, yes, exactly. That's exactly what happened there. They sounded good, but would need some more thorough testing, of course. Absolutely. I'm hoping as the weather is warmed up nicely. I don't have the accessory kit to put like the windshield on it. I can probably rig something up. I may even be able to put it in one of my windshields and take it outside and get some fun recordings out there. All right. What else would we like to look at that we can look at right now? Let's go ahead and plug an external microphone into it and hear what that sounds like. Oh, minor thing, but thank you, Zoom, for not using a ton of plastic. It's all paper board of various sorts, and it literally comes with nothing except for the recorder. So you're on your own to get the SD card, no USB cable, nothing. It's just the recorder and the microphone module. So with that, let's hook up another microphone. So let me go grab a microphone cable, and then we'll get a microphone on there and take a listen. Be right back. Be right back. Now, while we're here, just for fun and a look at things to come, I have something pretty exciting to show people here. Sorry for the noise. Pull this away a little bit. This is a Curtis Judd style unboxing. They're horrible. They're the worst unboxings of all. This is a Sennheiser MKH 8018.
Looks like a miniature baseball bat.
That's in its little case here, but this is the new microphone that Sennheiser just announced right around NAB time. It is a mid-side and wide and narrow stereo shotgun microphone. Very excited to try it. In fact, we were going to talk about it today, but you have to have the right cable. I thought I had a 5-pin to dual XLR cable, but I do not. So it's on order, and we'll probably come back next week and take a look at that, but just decided to grab that while I was already out there. So we have a microphone cable. The question is, which microphone do we want to use? How about a very common one? How about a Rode NT1 of some variety? I'll grab that. We've got several of those. Let's see which one we got here. This will either be the Signature Series or the NT1 5th Gen. Huh. I thought they said Signature Series on them if they were Signature Series. Well, it's not the 5th Gen, and so I'd actually prefer this anyway. So this is the NT1 Signature Series. It's basically the same as the NT1 4th generation. But we'll go ahead and get that hooked up. So we have our, which cable is this? This is a Canary. And it's, didn't have the best wrap job, so shame on me. Okay, this part goes into the XLR input. We can go to the overhead. We're going to pop out of the transfer mode here, so I'll let go of that. I'll make sure I eject the ZOOM H5studio, and then we'll exit. Cool. Okay, so we can disconnect from USB. You can see our battery power status indicator comes back. Good. Okay. Then we will go into the Rode NT1 Signature Series. We will turn off the inbuilt microphones and turn on this microphone here so I can gain down there. I need to turn on phantom power. So I'll come into the menus, come into our input. That's input 1. We are set to mic, that's correct. We're going to turn the phantom power on. Let's go ahead and turn this low cut on. Oh, by the way, there are a lot of options there. You could go 80 hertz, 160 hertz, 240 hertz. So that's actually pretty extreme there, but we'll go 80 hertz. We'll leave the limiter off for now. And we're not stereo linking. And that's good. So we should be good. So now we're going to pop back out. Pop out. Okay, now as I gain up, go ahead and, this is not shock mounted, so this is not ideal, but as we gain up, we should start to get some level. There we go. Okay, so I'll just do I'll do a test recording here. So we're at, looks like about a 5 or 6 halfway up. Let's go to 5. Checking 1, 2. Yeah, that's good. And start recording. Okay, here we're recording on the Rode NT1 Signature Series into the ZOOM H5studio. You're not hearing that right now, by the way. We'll bring it over onto the computer where you can hear it. But this is the Rode NT1 Signature Series into the ZOOM H5studio. Okay, we'll stop it there. Cool. All right, now let's get that USB cable again. Of course, we could pop the SD card out, but these micro SD cards, no thank you, would rather not. Connect via USB instead. That was a little fiddly. Okay, file transfer, USB. Sweet. Okay, we'll pull that into RX. We'll go ahead and switch to the Mac. Let's take a look. We have the 80 hertz filter on, so we're not seeing quite as much down there. That's good. Let's get a sense for where we're at loudness-wise. Pretty quiet. We've got a lot of headroom, so I'm going to gain up in post. Go 3. Render again. That's minus 26. That should be close to the levels I'm talking at right now. Okay, let's play it. Here we go. And start recording. Okay, here we're recording on the Rode NT1 Signature Series into the ZOOM H5studio. You're not hearing that right now, by the way. We'll bring it over onto the computer where you can hear it. But this is the Rode NT1 Signature Series into the ZOOM H5studio. Okay, we'll stop it there. That sounds exactly what I'd expect a Rode NT1 Signature Series to sound like. So that was good there. Obviously, we'll do some more thorough testing with lots of different microphones. But let's switch back over to the chat here. Get everyone's input on what'd you think of that. Mouth noise and everything. All of it was there. Everything.
Here's some previous ones.
Here's some previous notes. And the batteries are replaceable. Woot! Yes. That is a good thing. I can't imagine. If Rode made Zoom made a move like that for their handy recorders, I would be like, what is going on? Comparing the new Sennheiser and the Audio-Technica BP4029 would be very interesting. Indeed, it would. And I have to get my hands on a Audio-Technica BP4029 as well. Paul, it provides only 60 dB. I wonder how it would work with an SM7B, but Tascam Portacapture X8 may provide even less. So the amount of gain, yeah, let's go ahead and check that. They didn't mark it specifically, but let me go grab my SM7B. First, let me, a few things. I will close that file. We will eject the H5 from the computer, as they say, just so that we don't corrupt the card. We will then exit file transfer mode, and I'll go get this the Shure SM7B. Okay. Gain down. Pull the NT1 off of there. Okay, this is one of the most gain-hungry mics, dynamic non-ribbon microphones there are out there. So we just plugged that in. Let's go to the overhead. And I don't need phantom power, I just need to gain up. So here we are at max gain, and I'm about 2 inches off the front of the mic. Let's make a recording. This is me on the Shure SM7B. I'm about 2 inches off the front of the microphone. And in fact, Danny, if you cut to the main camera for just a second, people can see the positioning of the microphone here. Then we'll cut back over to the overhead camera. And that's actually doing pretty well. So that is the max gain on the Shure SM7B. We'll stop the recording there. Cool. Okay, let's bring that over. Again, USB, file transfer, USB. Whoop. Data, okay, all right, we're good there. Drop that into RX and let's switch to the Mac. Bass-wise, looks like we're not gonna destroy anyone's eardrums. That's actually a little hot. That's actually, yeah, let's listen to it. Here we go. This is me on the Shure SM7B. I'm about 2 inches off the front of the microphone. And in fact, Danny, if you cut to the main camera for just a second, people can see the positioning of the microphone here. And then we'll cut back over to the overhead camera. And that's actually doing pretty well. So that is the max gain on the Shure SM7B. We'll stop the recording there. Again, all of the glorious mouth and saliva noises come along with that. But overall, yeah, I'd say that the Shure SM7B, you probably shouldn't need a FET head or a cloud lifter or any of those kind of inline amplifiers to work with the Shure SM7B. So that's fantastic news. Mark, does the 3.5 connector have 5-volt phantom power to use a COS 11D in it? Quick law of setup. Good question. Let's test it. Well, let's look at the specs here. Let me go back over to the website. Sorry for the motion here. There must be, oh, here we go. Specs and details. Okay. Inputs, we have the mic castle, the mic line. Let's see. Plug-in power, 2.5 volts. I am not going to plug my COS 11D into there just for safety. Not a good idea to undervolt. And is that a lot of undervoltage? Not a lot, but I'd just rather not sacrifice it. But it does not supply a full 5 volts. This is one of the things that I've noticed in Zoom products over time is that they have a tendency to be very conscientious of power consumption of batteries, which is good because, having longer battery runtime is really a helpful feature, but they tend to be pretty aggressive about it. So that's why I think you see, for example, the headphone outputs are relatively less powerful than you might find, for example, on a Sound Devices Mix Pre. And then I've seen this as well. It seems like the plug-in power, they don't always supply that full 3 to 5 volts. They go 2.5 volts. Now, one of the things too, and I don't know if it says it here. Let's look at back at the Mac here. It doesn't say it on this one, but I've noticed on some of the others, it does supply 48 volts phantom power, but they usually have a maximum of, I'm trying to remember what it is, like 10 milliwatts per input. So in other words, if you have a condenser microphone that draws a fair bit of current in the form of, measured in milliwatts, more than 10 milliwatts per input. And it's not common, but there are some condenser microphones that do draw more than that. They're basically saying the input can only supply, yes, it can do 48 volts, but it can only supply at 48 volts up to 10 milliwatts. So that's something to keep in mind too. Again, not very common, but there are some microphones out there, condenser microphones that draw a little bit more. Okay. Thomas, in your review for the Tascam FR-AV2, you said it invited comparison to the Zoom F3. Is this H5studio the new fair matchup? What are some of the tiebreakers between them? More to come and as I get more experience with the H5studio, but I would be more like I said, it depends on what you're trying to do. The F3 is the F series is really made more for video production, which is what I do. The H5 or the Handy series are made more for kind of jack of all trades. So it's not a form factor that I'm a huge fan of. So I would probably still stick with the F3 is my initial thought. And keep in mind, and the FR-AV2 also does not have built-in microphones. I don't think it had built-in, certainly not stereo microphones like this. So I couldn't remember if it had MEMS microphones of some sort as well. But in any case, if you need, like if you want something that's very convenient with the built-in microphones, I think that's where the H5studio makes sense versus the FR-AV2 or the F3. So it's kind of different horses for different courses. Paul, FR-AV2 provides only 50 dB of gain. That could have made the difference between the F3 and the FR-AV2 in self-noise. The F3 seems to use the same preamps as H5studio, not the ones from the F6, F8N. Interesting. Okay, so yeah, okay. That would make sense. I've always wondered if there was technical difference between the F3's preamplifiers and the F6, F8N Pros. And it looks like Paul says there is a difference there. So thanks for the intel. We'll look into that a little bit more and see what we find. All right, friends, can you believe the time has come already? I'm sad to say it is time to call it for this week. Next week, we will be back. We'll be doing a full H5studio review at some point on my channel within the next few weeks. Next week, if everything pans out and we get the cable, we'll be taking a look at the Sennheiser MKH8018 next week. But in the meantime, get out there and make some great sound, and we'll talk to you next week. Also, wait, before we go, time out. Matt Ruff's studio live stream starts in 30 minutes, and you can find that again if you're interested in joining us. He and I will be talking. I'm sure it will be spicy over at the Senior Tech channel on YouTube. So be sure to join us there if you have the time. We'd love to have a little chat with you. Talk to you all again next week. Take care.